Welcome to the Mentally Strong Mums podcast, where we empower mothers to navigate life's challenges with resilience and grace. I'm your host, Elena Bishop, and today's episode is an important one. We're delving into a transformative therapy known as EMDR. But before we dive in, I want to offer a gentle trigger warning. We're going to be discussing topics related to what trauma is, which may be sensitive for some listeners. So if you find yourself needing support during or after this episode, please remember that help is always available. You are not alone, and you are welcome to contact me at any time. So as a special listener, if you are not confident to listen to this episode, please feel free to get my EMDR ebook on Etsy that I have made for clinicians to give to their clients. So search Supportive Therapy on the Etsy site or EMDR Explained, Tools for Therapists and Clients. That's my book. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. EMDR is a passion of mine because I have seen firsthand how powerful and the long-term changes with my own clients. So now, let's start the episode. Hi Mum, you do everything for everyone else. Let me help you make your life easier. Quick, short information to make you empowered and remind you why you are so important. Because if you don't know what's on the menu, how can you choose what's right for you? Hi, I'm Elena, director of my private practice Supportive Therapy, an everyday Aussie mum trying not to lose my biscuits at my kids. As a mental health professional, I'm here to share my secrets so no other mother feels alone or powerless. Knowledge is power, and I want you to be powerful. Think of it like I'm your mindset coach through all of this. Everything is backed by science and psychology. I believe in you, and I want you to be the best version of yourself. To be happy and to feel in control, you need to be mentally strong. Hello everyone, my name is Elena and I am from Mentally Strong Mums. Today is a very exciting day for me because we're going to be talking about EMDR. EMDR is a fabulous therapy technique that helps resolve trauma. So a lot of us have experienced some form of trauma in our life, and so we can either have big traumas such as car accidents, something really overwhelming, childhood abuse, sexual assaults, or we could have a whole lot of little traumas or little T's. So that could essentially just be I wasn't seen, I wasn't heard, I wasn't valued, my emotional needs were never met, and it's just this perceived abandonment or rejection. So the way that your brain perceives this is that we either have these big traumas, which we call them big T, or little traumas, which are little t. And the majority of my clients that come in, they don't feel like they have experienced traumatic events in their lives. So they're really confused as to why they're overreacting or responding the way that they do, why they're triggered constantly, and then sometimes why they make bad decisions in life or bad decisions with relationships. So we also have to understand that these little T's are like paper cuts. So even when you were growing up or even recently, you've received all these little paper cuts that have received all these messages that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm an inconvenience or a burden. It could be an injustice that something's happened to me, so I always need to fight. Sometimes if you have emotionally immature parents and they've never been able to be there for you, validate you, and it's always a series of gaslighting or minimizing. And every time that I reach out for attention, affection, they're angry or frustrated in some way of me doing that. So the other group of people are those ones with significant trauma. And so they can pinpoint the exact times when this happened, what the events were. But because it is extremely painful, they don't actually want to delve back into those memories. So this is why EMDR is absolutely perfect. Now, EMDR stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and reprocessing. And when we do this, it's amazing because you don't actually have to talk about the memory step by step, everything that happened blow by blow. And for those people that have had big T, it's amazing because your brain processes it in the correct way, and then it desensitizes the distress, the disturbance, and the trauma. And so this is why for a long-term trauma solution, EMDR is one of the best options that you can have in therapy. And being able to find a therapist who is trained in all of the protocols and can guide you through this, and how they understand exactly how trauma lives in your body, it can be one of the most amazing experiences you can ever have that has permanent long-term change. So I'm going to quickly explain what happens within the brain and how these memories get stuck, essentially. So imagine a traumatic event happened, whether it be a little T, a little paper cut, or a big T, a big event. So trauma is essentially any situation that overwhelms my capacity to cope. So this is why we all react and respond differently, because two people could be in the exact same situation, be treated the exact same way, or in the exact same trauma event. But because we are all different and unique and we have different perspectives and perceptions, I may actually perceive this moment different to the person who's with me. And that's also a really interesting note, because even though we have siblings, we may not have been treated the same, or we may not have perceived these little paper cuts the same. So we don't have the same traumas in our family. So when a little T or a big T happens, in that moment, it overwhelms my capacity to cope. And when it overwhelms my capacity to cope, sometimes my brain will then get dysregulated, and it will choose for me whether I fight or I flight, or will I freeze or fawn. So freezing looks like victim, numb, can't move, I've done something wrong, it's my fault, I can't believe all of that kind of self-blame, the freezing, dissociating. And then on the other side is fawn, F-A-W-N, like a little deer. So fawn is essentially people-pleasing, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, whatever you say, agree, comply, surrender. Or the other one is the fight, argumentative, competitive, vindictive, dominant, mistrust, blame, can look like paranoia. Otherwise, the other one is flight. Flight is panic, anxious, worry, nervous, scared, can't relax, can't sit still, and it's this constant state of, it's like a higher vibration and electricity, which in terms of hormones generally represents either adrenaline or cortisol. So when this little T or big T happens to you, your brain then chooses, because it overwhelms your capacity to cope, your brain then chooses how to react and respond in that moment, flight, fight, freeze, fawn. But because you're not present and you're trying to protect yourself, that little memory then gets paused in your brain at the worst bit for you. And when it gets paused in that moment at the worst bit, it isn't then correctly processed or reprocessed in your brain. So then when you have another moment, another small T or a big T, little trauma or a big trauma, it then exacerbates it. So then it's another moment in time that overwhelms my capacity to cope, and then it's pressed pause in my memory on the worst part of that moment, and it's relived, and that's where I get my trigger. That's where I feel distress. That's where I feel a disturbance when I think of it, and that's when I feel upset. So if this happens to you when you are younger, your brain sometimes has the capacity in different coping mechanisms to block things out, to disassociate, to not be present, and I don't trust my body. So sometimes when that happens, a huge indicator for me as a therapist is when someone comes in and they say, I don't remember a lot of things in my childhood. And there are a lot of explanations for that, but one explanation could be trauma. And it might not have been big T trauma, but a whole lot of little paper cut traumas, okay? Not being seen, not being heard, invalidated, all of that kind of stuff. So then understanding all these little moments in my life, all these little paper cuts, all big traumas that have just kind of pressed pause. So what happens when you come into the office? We will figure out how these moments have impacted you negatively in terms of how you view yourself. So some of those negative core beliefs about how I view myself is I feel like a failure, I have imposter syndrome, I have anxiety, I have depression, I don't feel good enough. All of these other symptoms. So these can also look like workaholic, addictions, conflict, all of this other kind of stuff. So it's understanding these little moments in time that your brain has not processed the memory correctly, has essentially pressed pause on the worst bit. And then your brain has decided how to make sense of that for you. I'm not good enough. I'm a burden. I'm an inconvenience. I feel like it's my fault. I have imposter syndrome and now I have to overcompensate and I'm a workaholic. Or I don't trust myself. I don't feel safe. I don't trust people around me. I feel like bad things always happen to me. I self-sabotage the majority of the time. So then when we figure out these negative core beliefs about why I don't feel good enough, or why I don't feel like I matter, or why I self-sabotage, whatever's going on for you, we then go back to these pause, distressing memories that are really upsetting and live in your mind rent-free. So then, have you ever seen that movie? It's called Monsters, Inc. It's a cartoon. And at the end of the movie, there's these doors that open up. And the thing is, with all of these moments in time, they are associated with a memory network. And when I think about not being good enough, my memory network lights up. So then all of the memories associated with not being good enough then light up, and these are the ones that have pressed pause. So then we would go through and we would say, you don't have to talk about the memory, but we want to know a label for the memory so we can investigate what's actually happened. So you will probably have about 5 or 10 or 15 of these memories that are associated with that pressing pause of that distressing or upsetting or disturbing memory. So then when that happens, you will come in for EMDR. We will walk through how it works. We will walk through different safety plans and how to look after yourself. We will do relaxation techniques, because if something happens or distressing, I need to make sure that you understand how to get back your state. So instead of being in a distressing state or an anxious state or depressed state, I can help you and guide you into realizing that you do have control of your body, you do have control on your mind, and how with a couple of little tweaks and exercises and skills, you can get your body into a relaxed state, into a calm state, into a peaceful state, into a happy state, okay? And it's really empowering to know that these memories don't have power over me anymore. that I do have the ability to be able to change my state. I do have the ability not to be a slave to these paused, distressing, triggering, upsetting memories. There's a really lovely analogy that I use, and it's like how we can reprocess these memories. And so remember when I was talking about the memories that light up? So when I think of I don't matter, or I'm not good enough, or I'm a burden or an inconvenience, there are a list of memories that are associated with that, okay? And these are all the memories that are on pause. So imagine your brain is like a filing cabinet filled with memories. Each one is stored in a folder. So some memories are really neatly organized and easy to access, while others are jumbled up and it's hard to make sense of. When we experience something traumatic or distressing, upsetting, or out of our control, it's like a messy file gets thrown into the cabinet, causing chaos and confusion. Now think of EMDR as a skilled librarian who can help rearrange and navigate these files. So with my guidance as a therapist, we can take out this messy file, which are all of those memories that are associated with that moment or that core belief. We open it up. We examine its content in a safe and controlled way. This is also about trust and knowing that with an expert that has been trained, they are able to guide you through this. Then using a special technique like eye movements, so that's essentially moving a finger left and right across your eyes or tapping. The librarian, therapist, helps us process the information that's in the file. As if we're sorting through this clutter, we're making connections and we're finding new insights that help us understand the memory better. As we continue this process, the memory starts to lose its power over us. And when I say lose its power, it means it's not distressing. I don't get triggers. I don't have an increased heartbeat. I don't get physiological symptoms or somatic experiences. When we reprocess these files, we desensitize them and reprocess them in the mind and desensitize them in the body. It becomes now like a neatly organized file. So in the cabinet, there's no longer chaos or distress. And when we talk about cabinets, your mind, when we come across it. So using this metaphorical rearranging of our memories, we can find healing and peace. So when you come in and we do these eye movements that go left and right, we're essentially then bringing up the memory in your mind and reprocessing it. And the best way to explain this is, have you ever heard of REM sleep, REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep? So when you sleep, what your brain is actually doing when your eyes move left and right while you're asleep in REM sleep, it's processing, consolidating the memories and events that have happened the day before and processing them correctly when you're asleep, so that it makes sense of it for the next day. So that's what they always say. If you're going to study for an exam, you always the day before study and cram. And then when you have a good night's rest and REM sleep occurs, then the memories or the contents are processed correctly in your mind, so that the next day, everything is in there, everything is organized, everything is sorted, and I remember everything correctly. So when we're talking about these distressing memories, all these memories that have pressed pause, we essentially then bring up the memory in the office in a controlled state. You don't have to talk about the memory or tell me what's happening. You bring up the memory, and then we do eye movements left and right. And when we do eye movements, we're essentially pressing play on that memory to see what actually happened. Because when we've pressed pause, it's press pause on the distressing, upsetting bit, either the little t or the big T. And when we press play, we can actually see what really happened in that moment how I did look after myself, how I didn't deserve that, and we see things for the truth, so we don't blame ourselves anymore. And this is what happens within the brain, that it reprocesses it correctly so that I can see it in clarity for the first time, as opposed to it constantly being paused and painful and upsetting. We press play, we see it for what it is, we then change our negative core beliefs, feeling like I don't matter, I feel helpless, I can't do anything about it, it's my fault, into positive core beliefs, which are I can handle it, I can choose who I trust, I believe in myself, it wasn't my fault, I can handle this. And then it essentially gets rid of all of that distress, all of that upset. It can resolve your anxiety and help with depression. It's phenomenal. And if you can find a therapist that can help you, guide you through that process, even though in the beginning it can feel really overwhelming and upsetting and fearful and fear of the unknown, at the end it's always beautiful and insightful, and I feel lighter and there's peace and clarity, and I understand it wasn't my fault, I didn't do anything to deserve that, I tried the best that I can, and I can't believe I've been living with this for such a long time and how it's been impacting my life for years. So it's a really beautiful process to understand that we do have power, we do have control. So the mind can heal itself naturally, the same way as the body does. Much of this isn't natural coping mechanism, and as we say, occurs in deep sleep, and that's REM sleep. And so this is the thing what we're doing while you're consciously awake. So using EMDR, we can assist this natural process in order to successfully treat a wide range of mental health concerns. And one of the most common ones is PTSD, because it's those little T's or the big T that happens over and over and over and over again. Okay? And after EMDR, you now experience a reduction in the vividness and the emotion associated with the trauma and the memories. And you start to authentically, on your own, repair self-beliefs. And that's the thing, we sometimes go to people to ask for help, and we go to people to get solutions. EMDR, when you do this process, you realize that everything is within you. You find the answers within yourself, and it's unlocking that and your unconscious into the conscious world and knowing what you want and knowing what you need. And I can't recommend it highly to anyone. And it just makes things in your life so much more peaceful, so much more clarity. So if we want to understand the brain, if we want to go into this further about understanding what happens when the brain is traumatized, so this is more of a scientific explanation as to what's happening with everything. So most of the time your body manages new information without you being aware of it. But then when something happens that overwhelms your capacity to cope, either a little T or a big T, or being repeatedly subjected to distress, so that's childhood neglect, emotional abuse, your natural coping mechanisms can then become overloaded. So this overloading can result in disturbing experiences remaining frozen in your brain, which means that they're unprocessed because they're paused. Frozen, paused, unprocessed. So, and that's what it means when your brain has pressed pause on the worst part of this memory, which you are reliving, that is unprocessed. These memories and feelings are stored in the limbic system, this part of the brain which is your emotional state, which is associated with anxiety and depression. So in the limbic system of your brain, it is raw and in its emotional form, rather than in a verbal story mode, factual mode. It's emotions, not facts, okay? So this limbic system holds traumatic memories in an isolated memory network where you pressed pause that is associated with emotions and physical sensations. And then it's disconnected from the brain's executive state. Executive state is where your forehead is. It's your prefrontal lobes, rational thinking, logic, and consequences. It's not here. So there's no logic, there's no rational thinking, and there's no consequences when it comes to thinking rationally, logically about your trauma and what has happened to you, because it's not stored in your forehead, which is the executive state, which is higher functioning. It's stored in your limbic emotional state, which is physical triggers, distressing, upsetting. Okay? This executive state where we store language to store memories, and that sometimes we can't talk about it. It's just a feeling or a sensation. These memories can be continually triggered when you experience similar events when you press pause. So that's essentially PTSD, because if I experience a similar event, or if I perceive a similar event to that original paper cut, little t, big T, the moment that press pause, it then gets exacerbated, piles on, and that's a sense of PTSD. So the memory itself can be long forgotten, but painful feelings such as anxiety, panic, anger, or despair are continuously triggered. So your ability to live in the present and learn from new experiences becomes sometimes impossible. And that's when I get frustrated, because why does this keep happening to me? And it's because it hasn't been processed correctly in your brain. And so that's sometimes that original memory that happened, I might not remember that as an adult or realize that that was the cause of my PTSD or my functioning or my negative coping mechanisms or my negative core beliefs. And it's really difficult because if we're not aware of what happened, we can't just go to a normal therapist and talk about things, because talking and talking and talking and talking doesn't solve it. You need something impactful like EMDR that actually changes the brain, that understands the different areas of the brain and how they all interact in terms of trauma. Okay? EMDR helps create connections between your brain's memory networks, enabling your brain to process the traumatic memory in a natural way with that REM movement. Okay? So when we talk about what happens in a session, number one, we have healing ability. So EMDR utilizes the natural healing ability of your body. After a thorough assessment, we will then ask you specific questions about disturbing memories. And as I said, you don't have to go into them. We prefer if you don't go into detail, but understanding how these are impacting you today. So eye movements occur when you watch the therapist's finger moving backwards and forwards or left and right across your visual field. So the faster the fingers move, the better it is for processing. And instead of trying to be conscious and focusing on what do I need to think, what do I need to be, you just have to let and allow the brain reprocess itself with the eye movements. And so when people go through this process, typically they will experience three things. They will experience memories, they will either experience thoughts, or they will experience physical sensations. So I've had a lot of clients that just have memories, and then I have other clients that have thoughts and they want to talk, and all the thoughts that come through when they're trying to reprocess it and logically figure it out, and that's about the frontal lobe. And then I have other clients that don't have memories, they don't have thoughts, they only have physical sensations. So I feel this here, I feel that there, it's painful here, oh that's gone, I feel a new one. And this is about understanding the brain, mind, body connection and how everything's intertwined, okay? So when we process it, the eye movements will only last for a short while and then they will stop. I will then ask you, what's happening? What are you noticing during these sets? Because what happens will then determine how I then guide you through this process the best way. And so it only has to be short. Am I experiencing a memory? Am I experiencing a thought? Or am I experiencing a sensation? So then I'm like, amazing, we'll go this way. Great, let's go this way. Everyone's different and everyone's unique and everyone processes differently. So it's about being patient with yourself and really curious about the process, okay? It can have changes in thoughts, changes in images, and changes in feelings. And then sometimes the original memory, when I try to go back to it, I can't remember it anymore. It's completely gone, or it's completely changed, or it's turned fuzzy. And so especially if there's things with current court cases, especially involving DV, domestic violence, sometimes it might not be beneficial for you to do EMDR yet, because I have these distressing, disturbing memories, but when we do EMDR, it processes them correctly and actually removes the distressing memories from my mind. So then when I do go to court, I can't remember the moment of impact or the moment of distress or the moment of trauma anymore. So I can't recall it. And that's how amazing and powerful this is, and the way that we need to respect the mind, and how beautiful EMDR complements long-term permanent recovery. And in terms of your results, the memory can change and loses its painful intensity, loses its triggers, loses distress, and loses upset. And it now becomes a neutral memory and just a random event in the past. So remember the filing cabinet analogy, metaphor? All of those distressing, upsetting, there's no chaos, it's just something that happened, and now I can let it go and move on, okay? Other associated memories may also heal at the same time. So that's called a generalization effect. So remember when we were talking about if I have a negative core belief and there's all these memories that are associated it, like 5, 10, 15 memories. Sometimes after we do the first 2 memories and we reprocess them correctly, there is a generalization effect where all of the memories afterwards, they don't matter anymore. They're not upsetting anymore. I don't need to reprocess them because they're done. I can let it go. I know that it wasn't my fault. I know that I'm better than that. I know that I can handle anything, and I now can trust myself. I don't need to work on that. It's amazing. So the linking of related memories can lead to a dramatic and rapid improvement in so many different aspects of your life. And so we want to understand what can be resolved. So it can be things like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, complex PTSD. I'm dyslexic, so I always have trouble with acronyms. Post-traumatic stress disorder. CPTSD just means complex, which means there's 2 or more different events. So if you've had A, B, C, D happen that are impacting you today, which are big traumas, big T's, then you potentially have CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic disorder, which means you just have a couple of different events which are impacting your triggers. Anxiety, panic attacks, phobias, sleep problems, workaholic, toxic relationships, narcissistic behaviors, connections with your parents, feelings of not being good enough, abandonment, grief, addictions, pain relief, self-esteem, OCD or obsessive compulsive disorder, as well as negative childhood memories, okay? So sessions can generally last between 60 and 90 minutes. So for us to process it and respect the process, we prefer a minimum of 6 sessions to get a benefit from this technique, okay? And then it'll help you resolve your goal. So whatever your goal is, you come in, we will figure it out, and we can help resolve it. So just to be aware, it may not be appropriate for everyone. So during the initial consultation, and we may mutually agree a plan forward to discuss if this is the best option for you. And if it's not, we're going to figure out different alternatives, okay? Some people get worried and scared that if I go into my unconscious, or if I go into these memories, or if you're doing something to my brain like this, will I still remain in control? Yes, you are awake, you will remain in control and fully alert. It is not a form of hypnosis, and you can stop the process at any time. And during the initial stages, we teach you how to say stop when you want to stop. And we also encourage you, if you're having a revelation or something amazing's happen, and you can know that we're about to stop the eye movements and you want to continue, how can we support you continue? Okay? Throughout the session, the therapist will support your own self-healing and intervene as little as possible. And this is about having respect for the brain and how it processes naturally, and how eye movements help with that. So reprocessing is experienced spontaneously. Jesus, one of those days, isn't it? And a new connection and insights are felt naturally from within. So you will be in control. Most people that experience EMDR, it's very amazing, empowering therapy, and the distress only lasts for about 8 minutes sometimes. And then the rest of the time we're reprocessing, making sense of it, making meaning, realizing I'm not a victim anymore, I'm a survivor, I can handle it, I'm in control of everything, and then finding amazing meaning in your life. So when it comes to EMDR, there's a really basic timeline. 1, assessment. 2, we get your target goals. 3, we look at your current triggers. 4, we have a look at what you want to be in the future and how you want to respond in the future so you're not triggered or upset. And then we will reassess everything to see if your goals have been met and to see how you are feeling about everything. There's this metaphor that I always use with clients about a train. So essentially when we sit, I will sit in front of you, but a little bit to the left, so that your vision is looking past my shoulder and I am looking forward past your shoulder. So sitting side by side, okay? And so when I'm sitting there, I'm essentially a train driver, okay? And your memories are going to be like a train ride. So me, I'm the therapist. I'm going to be in the seat next to you the entire time. It's going to be nice and relaxed. Imagine sitting in first class. So you have to, with these memories that come through that I'm helping you guide you through, you just sit there and notice what's happening. You don't have to focus on anything. You just notice with curiosity what's popping up and what's happening and let it pass by like a train ride. And then when I stop, it's like we've stopped off at a station. We've let that lot of memories pass by and then we start again. But we don't want to hold on to anything. We just notice the scenery outside the window. We notice the scenery is coming closer, or if there's a train window, which is a barrier, is gone. We just notice everything coming by. We don't take ownership of it, and we just look at everything with curiosity. So we also see that there's an emergency cord at the top of the train car. So you can pull this at any time to stop the train. And all it is a stop signal for me so that you can stop. But because you're in first class, you can ask me to slow down, to go faster, to stop, to take a break. You are in control, okay? This is your journey, this is your session, this is your empowerment. I'm the train driver that's going to get you to your destination, which is your goal. So if we're going through a tunnel, it might feel dark and scary for a while, but remember that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. If you want to stop in the tunnel, you need to push through, but everything's up to you about what you decide. So the memories are not happening now. You are safe now, okay? We just need to watch them go by without taking ownership of them. And so that's why you have to do this with a therapist, who understands this process and that can guide you through this. So every time we get to a station, we drop off memories that we don't need anymore. And that's that process of reprocessing them correctly to remove distress, okay? And then there's a whole lot of things that we need to understand to get you into a place of calm. Remember that peaceful state and feeling that empowerment. So sometimes understanding the negative cognitions that we have assumed the majority of our life. And negative cognitions are, I don't deserve love, I am unworthy, I am flawed, I don't matter, I should have done something, I did something wrong, I should have known better, I am inadequate and it was my fault. Can be things like I am vulnerable, I'm going to die, I'm not safe, I can't trust anyone and I can't protect myself. Showing emotions is weak. Feeling helpless and trapped, I'm not in control and I can't handle it. I can't connect, I don't belong. I am invisible and I'm alone. So when we do this process of EMDR, we process the memories correctly from that emotional state in the limbic system to logic, reasoning in your executive functioning in your higher. So now I, on my own, can come to my own conclusions. I can look inward and completely change my negative beliefs, my negative cognitions into positive ones on my own. I am good enough. I am competent. I do matter. It wasn't my fault. I am a loving person. I deserve to be treated with respect. I did the best that I can. I am adequate. I can learn from my mistakes. I can learn to protect myself. I survived. I am safe now. I can choose who to trust. It is over. Showing emotions is a strength. I have choices now. I am free. I can handle it. I'm in control. I can learn to trust myself. Mistakes help me grow. I do connect. I am connected. I do belong. I am deserving of being seen. I am myself, and that's okay. This process will also help you understand emotional intelligence, because during that time I might not have been in control of my body and I don't feel like my body is safe, so I then don't trust my body. So then this process can help you realize that I really need to get in touch with me. My body is not an enemy. I did the best that I can. And so then that's essentially everything to do with EMDR. It's such a beautiful process moving forward, and if you can find someone who you really trust, who understands and respects the process, it will be a life-changing event for you, because all of those things and all of those goals, all of those insecurities that you have no longer exist, and it increases your resilience. You don't have any symptoms. There's no PTSD. My anxiety is reduced. My depression can be gone. And it's understanding where they all came from, and then finding new meaning in your life and actually believing in yourself. So obviously, with what you can hear, I'm very passionate and I cannot recommend it highly enough. So any questions, please let me know. If you were interested, feel free to contact me. I can even do it via Zoom. So depending on where you are, either in Australia, if you want to come in the office in Brisbane, you're welcome to come and see me, or even finding someone who does EMDR who you like and trust. One quick side note, if you go and see a therapist, even though they say they do EMDR, if you don't vibe with them, if you don't feel safe with them, if you are triggered by them in any way, you do not have to be loyal to them. You have to find someone who you feel safe with, who you trust. And it might take you 3 different people to find that trust and safety for you to open up and be vulnerable with. You don't generally find your dream therapist first time. And when you do EMDR and you do find your right therapist, it'll change your life. But then when you resolve everything and you outgrow them, it's also time for you to evolve and find another therapist or another support or another coach that can help push you to that next level. So it's an important reminder not to feel trapped. If you don't like someone or your instincts don't trust someone, even though they're the quote-unquote therapist, you don't have to be loyal to them. This is a process of listening to yourself, having your own back, and finding the people and your support around you who you trust. Okay? Thank you so much. It was a really heavy episode. Really amazing though. After this episode, let everything marinate. Let everything sink in. Try and do something lovely and positive for yourself. Do something nice for yourself. Even go outside. Smell the fresh air. Look at the trees. Put your feet in the sand or grass or rocks or whatever's around you. Shake everything off. Take a deep breath in. Okay? And then if you need to listen to this again, listen to it again. But I'm telling you, EMDR, it's the most amazing, effective, beautiful process that really respects your body and is the ultimate way of letting go of the past in an authentic way so that you don't get haunted by these paused memories anymore. All right. Love you, Mum. Thank you so much. Bye. If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I want to thank you for your support. It takes me hours to research and create this for you, so I genuinely hope you enjoyed it and felt more mentally strong. If you have any suggestions or improvements, let me know, because I'm always open for criticisms. If you have found my information useful, please leave a review and subscribe. So by leaving a review, it's a value exchange. It's good karma. I value your support just as much as you value my free information. So find me on Instagram and Facebook by searching Mentally Strong Mums, and I'm Aussie, so we're spelled MUM. And then you can find heaps of resources on www.mentallystrongmums.com. And this podcast is for you. So let me know what topics you would like to see covered in future episodes. And if yourself is a professional that is working with mums and would like to be a guest to help other mums be mentally strong, I would love to support you. So message me on Instagram on Mentally Strong Mums, MUMS, all one word. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day, you beautiful mum.